स्वागत छ दर्शकवृन्द। दक्षिण एसियाली क्षेत्रीय सहयोग संगठन सार्क को 18औं शिखर सम्मेलन बाराको गढीमाई मेला, यसैगरी जनकपुरको विवाह पञ्चमी लगायत खास खबरहरूको विशेष प्रस्तुति लाइभ कभरेजमा छौं हामी र अहिले भने बेला भएको छ सार्क बहसको। आज हामीसँग स्टुडियोमा सार्क बहसमा हुनुहुन्छ नेपालका लागि युरोपियन युनियनका राजदूत रेन्जे टिरिङ। उहाँ सार्कको प्रतिनिधि पनि हुनुहुन्छ युरोपियन युनियनका लागि। यसैगरी उहाँले 18औं सार्क शिखर सम्मेलनमा युरोपियन युनियनका तर्फबाट उहाँकै नेतृत्वमा प्रतिनिधित्व अब्जर्भर नेसनको रूपमा, अब्जर्भर युनियनको रूपमा प्रतिनिधित्व गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ। महामहिम स्वागत छ यहाँलाई कार्यक्रममा।
धन्यवाद, मलाई सञ्चय छ।
Excellency, so we are finally all set for this 18th SAARC summit. How hopeful you are with the outcome of this 18th SAARC summit?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me stress that I'm very hopeful, very excited about the SAARC summit. First of all, because it's for the first time since 3 years that we had the last summit, which took place in Adu City in the Maldives. And that was the very first summit that took place south of the equator. Now, 3 years later, here under the guidance of Nepal, we're near the Himalayas. And I think it's important to realize that what an enormous geographical coverage the SAARC countries have. And I think that is something that is very often overlooked in the West, for example. Secondly, I'm very excited to be able to observe the summit here in the presence of all the heads of state and government. And especially, of course, the presence of Prime Minister Modi, who after his unprecedented invitation during his swearing-in ceremony invited all the SAARC leaders. I think this has really given the hope that this summit here in Kathmandu will reinvigorate the SAARC process. And so hopefully we can all hope that at the outcome there will be a very strong declaration with a strong agenda for the future of SAARC. And if I look at the leitmotif of this summit, it's towards a deeper and more prosperous regional integration for more prosperity. I think that is exactly what SAARC is all about, and it's also what the European Union is about and was about since the last 60 years and is still following in those footsteps.
Excellency, you represent the European Union, which is considered as the most successful geopolitical union right now in the world. And we are in a SAARC, which is equal geopolitically union in South Asia. But there is a very vast difference between the EU and SAARC regarding the political as well as the economical aspects. So what are the lessons that SAARC should have to be, the people from the SAARC and the leaders from the SAARC should have to be taken from this European Union?
Yes, I think it's important to remember that the European Union was actually born in the aftermath of a terrible world war. And it's, let's say, the whole Franco-German reconciliation project that made the people realize that, you know, in order to avoid another war on the European subcontinent, we have to integrate. First of all, economically, the European project started off with economic cooperation, and the first institution that was actually set up back in 1951 was the European Community for Coal and Steel. And so it was by building institutions and by gaining mutual trust that the European project took off. And I think maybe that is the first important lesson also for SAARC, is that it's only by overcoming a trust deficit, by mutually cooperating, that regional integration can really take place. And if you see at Europe now, we started, of course, as a common market, but then over the years, the European integration project became more and more political. More and more countries joined the European Union, and there are certain ways of how to make that possible. I mean, now we have a union of 28 member states. I mean, it's quite a complex way of dealing with individual countries. All of them have to give up a certain amount of sovereignty. And one way to overcome this, what was done in the EU, is to have a multi-speed Europe. For example, not all countries have to sign up to things they don't want. So that is, for example, why we have the Eurozone. Not every country is part of the Eurozone. We have, so the Eurozone is the big thing, but there are also other countries such as Norway, Switzerland, who are in the heart of Europe, but who decided never to become part of the EU. But they have chosen other ways of cooperating, and they're very deeply involved in the EU integration process after all. For example, Norway and Switzerland are both part of the Schengen passport-free zone. So, for example, a Nepalese citizen, if he or she wants to visit Europe and visit Switzerland, since Switzerland has subscribed to the Schengen regime, there is no separate visa needed. So, I think the most important lesson to be drawn is that the integration process is a gradual process. But it needs commitment and it needs trust. And I think that those are the two basic underlying principles.
Excellency, just recently you said that there is a compromise of sovereignty by from every countries. So what is the secret of what is the formula that EU comes up with this redefining sovereignty in a new way for the economic progress, since SAARC is missing this, and there is this is the main challenge that
it is the main challenge. And I think in Europe very early on all member states realized very quickly the economic gains there were to be had from a deeper integration. I mean, for example, take the euro. All the transaction costs that were saved by having a single currency, an internal market, the fact of being able to travel freely within Europe. I think no matter how Eurosceptical a person can be, I think these are really concrete deliverables. And if to come back to SAARC, I think SAARC also has a lot of very worthwhile plans and projects and declarations. If you see the consecutive summits since SAARC started off back in the mid-80s, I think there is no dearth of really good intentions and plans. I think the problem probably is to the fact that they have not really been implemented. And I think especially it's always good to have declarations and to proclaim new declarations, but I think the follow-up and making that into turning that into practical action, that is maybe where SAARC has been lacking. And for that, again, as I said, you need trust and you need a goodwill, good governance, and you will need mutual cooperation.
So we need a kind of correction inside us for the prosperity and peace as well as for the progress. Excellency, since not only the EU, not only the observer nation, EU is one of the SAARC's best friend, assisting in a lot of projects. There are a lot of projects going on between EU and SAARC. Would you like to tell us about the facts regarding this EU-SAARC project ongoing?
Thank you. Yes, in fact, we started cooperating with SAARC back in 1996. Our very first project with SAARC was actually very pragmatic. We provided support to the SAARC Secretariat because we had just signed a memorandum of understanding with SAARC, and that was really the start of our cooperation. It was a very pragmatic and simple project. We basically provided computers, photocopiers to the SAARC Secretariat here in Kathmandu. We provided technical assistance and staff training. And so that was the start, and since then we've never looked back. We've really stepped up our engagement with SAARC. For example, in the realm of trade, we supported the establishment of SAFTA also with technical assistance, because there is a lot again where the European Union can be of help in that realm. There was a project helping for standards and customs, which I think had some important impacts. And then, of course, also a project on civil aviation in South Asia. So these are all projects that have been implemented and in the past. Now we're looking to our new cycle of funds.
So what are in the pipelines?
So in the pipeline, first of all, let me say that we have for the South Asian countries a very handsome envelope. I mean, totally we have 3 billion euros for the South Asian region as a whole. Of course, it's only the countries that have graduated from LDC status that are eligible to receiving this. And so, for example, India and Maldives are not eligible, but all the other countries have. And for example, Nepal is receiving 360 million euros over the next coming years. I think the biggest recipient is Afghanistan with 1.4 billion euros. Then we have Pakistan, Bangladesh with about 600 million euros each. So, I mean, this is a big portfolio when we talk about South Asia. But on top of that, we have our regional program, and there we still have to really think of what kind of projects we want to support. We are not there yet. The money is there, but it's just a matter of seeing what can we do with this, with these funds to foster regional integration in South Asia. In the past also, let me maybe tell you a little bit on what we've done with other regional projects. We have a 153 million project called Switch Asia, which is actually focusing on more sustainable economic development, and it helps firms and enterprises to switch from, let's say, environmentally degrading and not such good production ways to more sustainable ways. And one thing where, for example, where Nepal also has benefited is a project on the elimination of lead paints. So leaded paints are very harmful for the environment, especially when children are exposed to them. So this is one thing which we've done across Asia, South Asia, and Nepal is one of the beneficiaries. I could go on. I mean, we have a project on animal health. We have projects with ECMOD on climate change adaptation. So all these projects are.
So there are so many avenues, the stills are remaining.
Yeah.
So cumulatively, if the peoples from SAARC try, then there are so many avenues. Still, there are so many avenues. Ma'am, what I want to again ask you regarding this public diplomacy and peoples-to-people contact in SAARC. This is a really missing thing. There is a lack of belongingness between SAARC countries, intra-SAARC. So we need a there are a lot of things that has to be done in regarding this public diplomacy. And EU, again, working on this. There is a assistance regarding this. So would you like to highlight what are the projects, what are the ideas that EU want to exchange?
Yes, well, let me maybe first clarify that, of course, in terms of public diplomacy, we have one big project that has just started for SAARC and India for about 4.5 million euros. But that public diplomacy project is really linked to creating awareness about the EU in the South Asian countries, and to put EU on the map, so to speak. So what does it concretely do? For example, we are funding a few European Union education fairs. There is one going to start in New Delhi in 2 weeks. And it will then move to Bangalore and Kolkata. So, I mean, this is interesting because it puts EU on the map. It generates an interest in the European Union as a social model. So we get our visibility. It gets people-to-people contacts off the ground. It provides for potential students who want to study in Europe some way of getting scholarships. So these are a few activities we're doing, but it's not so much only in the interest of the recipient country, it's also in our interest. So it's a mutual interest kind of endeavor which we sponsor. One thing I forgot to mention in terms of regional cooperation, we have a big program called Erasmus Mundus, which provides scholarships to students from around the world. And I must say that Asia, and especially South Asia, has benefited quite a lot. I mean, so far, I think there have been about 7,000 students from the SAARC region who have received a full scholarship to study either for a complete degree or a master's degree or a PhD, or part of their studies in colleges and universities around Europe. And so I think this has been generating a lot of interest.
Excellency, also I would like to know about the development cooperation assistance that extended EU to SAARC.
Yeah.
Would you like to put on some highlight on this?
In terms of development cooperation, I think we can safely say...
Is EU satisfied with the result outcomes?
Yes. Let me first give you a little bit of an overview on what our envelope for Asia and the sub-region. I mean, globally we have about 6 billion, more than 6 billion euros for Asia, which is quite a respectable amount, I would say. South Asia gets more than 3 billion of this, and I already said a little bit how that is divided in terms of, of course, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh. So that is, of course, the crux of our bilateral grant portfolio. With SAARC as such, as I said earlier, it's been a bit more difficult to find actual projects to do through SAARC, because the only way for us to work was through the SAARC Secretariat. And basically we found that it was quite a lengthy and cumbersome process to get these projects off the ground. So in a few occasions also we could not go ahead because we didn't get the green light from all the SAARC member states. And I think that is a bit the problem again with SAARC, is that of course it's an intergovernmental way of working. Every member state will have to have its say on whether a project will go ahead, yes or no. And so there may be a very good project, 7 member states like it, the 8th one may block, and that's the end of it. So it is a difficult process.
Yes, but there are so many hopes. Ma'am, we are at the end of the program, so I would like to ask you that how do you view your role in this 18 SAARC as alone regional body, observer regional body?
I think it's a very fortunate role, because indeed, as you say, we're the only regional body with an observing role. And I think therefore we are so well placed to step up our cooperation with SAARC, because we know exactly the kind of challenges and the kind of difficulties that need to be overcome to make South Asian integration a success. So I see my role mainly as one of a supporter, of a development partner, and of somebody who, as EU we can hopefully transmit some of the lessons learned. And I think, as I said before, there are hurdles to cooperate with SAARC, but there's also good news. And I think the recent news coming from the SAARC Secretariat is that they are also looking in this in an innovative way and finding a new role for observers. Because I think so far, I mean, the irony, of course, with SAARC is there are more observers than member countries. There are 9 observers. There hasn't been really a specific role for the observers. I mean, we're there.
Observers are observers.
Yes,
only. The status of the observer is also has to be redefined.
It has to be redefined, yes.
And finally, ma'am, is there any message from your side to the SAARC leader?
I would say I hope that this summit, I mean, first of all, I wish the leaders best of luck with this summit. I'm sure it's all in good hands, and I'm very fortunate to be able to witness maybe a small part of it. Secondly, the message is, I would say, please continue this process. I think if sometimes, not always you can have a very concrete outcomes, but the fact that there is this meeting already since 30 years where all the leaders meet and have regular interaction, and where also people-to-people contacts can take place, that is an important message. And if this process is continued in earnest, I think then we can get somewhere. And I think what the leaders maybe should realize is that the costs of not having integration in South Asia will be very high to bear, and it's more costly not to have it than to have it. And so that is the best reason to continue and make headway with this process.
And definitely, and at this point of 18th SAARC summit, there is a good enthusiasm between South Asians people as well, and since there is a lot of change in the political dimension in South Asia, we all are expecting the same, and we'll come up with the results this time with the Kathmandu Declaration. Thank you so much. धन्यवाद महामहिम, हामीलाई समय दिनुभएकोमा। दर्शकबिन, उहाँ हुनुहुन्थ्यो नेपालका लागि युरोपियन युनियनका राजदूत रेन्जे टेरिङ। एभिन्यूज टेलिभिजनको सार्क सन्दर्भको आजको समय यति नै। खबर भित्रको खबरको लागि हेर्दै रहनुहोला एभिन्यूज टेलिभिजन।